The thing that I found interesting about the congressional hearing, of which there were many, but in terms of consciousness, I like very much how David Grush was very precise in not saying alien or not saying ET, but he was very precise in not wanting to indicate provenance, where these craft came from, where the beings that he says the government has and is in his testimony, not in the congressional hearing testimony, but in the private testimonies that he has been certified as having given. And he introduced the idea of consciousness. And this, I think, is really, really important because the whole conversation, especially as it's coming out onto a more world stage, and I'm seeing more and more news outlets at least trying to cover the basics, and they're very passe if they put the X-File music woo on the background with little twitters, because I think we can say goodbye to that. Anybody who does that, they just don't know what they're talking about. And they're not respecting the process that we're going through for we are in the phase of confirmation, even if we don't have full disclosure. We're in the phase of confirmation. And the fact that consciousness is being introduced brings me great pleasure. Because up until now, in the conversation, we've had nuts and bolts, show me the ship, and then we've had the experiencers, and then we've had some of the scientist people that are starting to come in, where they're wanting to understand what the materials do, and they want to understand how it works. But what's missing in all of this is consciousness. And so the fact that he even introduced that on that stage brings me hope. When we look at these changing times that we're in, as individuals, and let's see, I'm calling him ET out of habit, but that whole conversation is creating a ripple throughout the worldview that people have had. Ontological is the new buzzword for it. And as it ripples through the worldview, what it does is it puts on our plate two things. One, holy camole, maybe the world isn't the way I thought it was. And holy camole, maybe the world is exactly how I thought it was. Depending upon which side you fell on, yes or no, in this whole idea of other sentient species being active and present here in our Earth paradigm. And so either way, we're asking ourselves, and the call to action is to step outside or step out of the old paradigms that we're living in and step deeper into the paradigm of our own divine consciousness, our own cosmic consciousness. And I've talked about other times about our divine soul knowing, that's our origin spark of consciousness from the creator itself, but the source of all of creation. And one of the first principles is that all things come from the divine light source. So that means all things come from the divine light source. So whether you look at it in terms of Big Bang, whether you look at it in terms of evolution, whether you look at it in terms of, things are just plopped here, 7 days, done and done. It doesn't matter how you look at it. But if you consider that all things come from the divine light source and really feel into it, that means all of the differences that you see and all of the judgments that you put or that puts on the differences that they see in this good bad polarity paradigm that we've been living in, you're judging the source. All things come from the divine light source. Divine light is infinite intelligence that knows all things because it created all things. Infinite intelligence. Okay, so that means there's a constant exchange of information. Even the protons are exchanging information. An omniscient wisdom that knows how to manage all things for the highest good of all. And if you really contemplate that, all things come from the divine light source. It's infinite intelligence, which means there's a constant exchange of information. An omniscient wisdom that knows how to manage that for the highest good of all. So the whole structure, all things, it's always going to be equilibrium with all things. And an infinite unconditional love. That means no boundaries. And we use the word love simply because it's something that's easier for the human aspect to relax into and really be and receive. Because it's something that we're taught to be hungry for, which is absolutely crazy because it's who we already are. That means all things come from the divine light source. All things have an infinite intelligence inherent in them, an omniscient wisdom inherent in them, and that omnipotent unconditional love, all powerful unconditional love, that's the creation force. So if you're a scientist, you're not going to resonate with those words, but think of it in terms of quantum mechanics. When you consider that, then the idea of separation is the ontological shock. The idea of separation is the primary ontological shock that you took on in this earth experience. So it's the idea of separation that behooves us to let go of and really contemplate all things come from the divine light source. You, me, everything, other sentient species. And when you let go of what you think you know and don't try to fit that into your old box, your old paradigm, you really let go of what you think you know and really relax into yourself and just say, okay, I come directly from the divine light source. So do my parents, my grandparents, and blah, 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 blah. And really contemplate that. But it will take you into yourself and the love of you. And it'll take you into a very deep recognition of your connection with everything. And so the idea of these other sentient species only makes sense. And the idea of being at war with someone doesn't make sense. I mean, we might want peace because we don't like the fighting, but it doesn't make sense when you really take the moment to consider, and this is the first principle of the 14 principles of unconditional love, it doesn't make sense. So my challenge is for anybody who hears this conversation to take a moment and do a look, let, love exercise, thought exercise. So just look within, let go of what you think you know. Let the love rise up from the source of all of creation that's flowing through you. All things come from the divine light source. So it's flowing through you. Let that love rise up. And then just allow, as if you were looking at a video or hearing an audio, just look at the thoughts of separation that are running through your mind and let love flow through them. And just breathe quietly and contemplate all things come from the divine light source. As people come to mind, You look at them and say, they come from the divine light source of all of creation. Let love flow. If a hurt comes up or a hidden anger comes up, and that object of the anger, that person, they come from the divine light source. I come from the divine light source. We're individuations of it. We're each unique, like gorgeous, intricate snowflakes, but we all come from the divine light source. And really allow yourself to get a sense of that on much deeper levels. And it will totally change the way you move in the world. It will totally increase your understanding. And then, if you ever do meet an other being of sentience, in the sovereignty of the knowledge of your light, you can look at them without fear because they come from the divine light source, as do all things. And it'll also help you reframe, if you have had experiences, it'll help you reframe its sense. But first and foremost, really consider that. And then let me know how it goes. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being interested in learning on how to live your light more fully and freely with emotional freedoms that you haven't even yet begun to dream of, and that gives you the courage and clarity to live your divine soul purpose. Now, just so that I play well with the algorithms here on YouTube, be sure to like the video. Please leave me a comment because I do love more two-way conversations, and subscribe if you want to stay in touch with any of the new material that I'm putting out there.